Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thank you for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is the Daily Medicine Transmission for July 20th, 2021. And the subject we all love to hate. We create our reality. There's some imagery here with today's thumbnail for this video that is in reference to something I posted earlier. We're going to revisit some ideas and some subjects here because it's so important that we really actually understand what this feels like and how this is a reality for us so that we can get on with the process of waking up here. Because we have to embrace this concept and live it in our lives if we want to actually be free. So welcome back to my subscribers. Welcome if you're new to the channel. And as always, whenever you interact with content, either on BitChute, YouTube, or any platform you find this content on, and any independent content creator that is not boosted up by bots and paid views and things like that, because it's definitely a thing. It's one of the ways that our perception of reality is manipulated, is thinking people have bigger followings than they actually do. Anyway, so if you are finding this information valuable, inspiring, you think it'll help other people, then go ahead and subscribe. You can like, you can share, you can comment on this content, not just me, but all independent content creators. And that really does signal to the AI that this information is important enough to spread to a larger audience and make suggestions to people on their feed. So you can go ahead and do that if you want to support this channel, and we'll get right back into the content here rather than the promotional spiel. I think it is important for people, though, to realize that, organic growth is very rare, and it takes a very long time, just like anything else in nature, and that when people have incredibly large followings, when their channels are fairly new, I would say a very small percentage of those are actual organic growth because of the quality of the content, and a lot of it is bots and paid subscriptions, paid views, in order to boost certain messages and to suppress others. So if you aren't already familiar with how that happens, I mean, we talk about shadow banning and things like that, and the algorithm burying content creators, which is absolutely one of the mechanisms that keeps independent content creators from, having an equal chance of being seen. But a lot of it too is infiltration. And so that's just something to keep an eye out for. So we create our reality, don't we? And like I said, it's a subject we all love to hate because, boy, oh boy, it keeps, it really just disrupts that Chiron victim narrative, doesn't it? Or savior, right? If we don't trust that people create their own realities for themselves, we will feel in some ways like we need to step in and save people. Oh boy, the empath's curse, isn't it? Why do empaths tend to empath around really challenging situations? Because it's really uncomfortable to feel other people's uncomfortable feelings. And if we can mitigate that process for them, we tend to do so, which has been one of the most destructive habits and capacities that empaths have been having, and such an attraction to narcissistic behavior. So but we need to embrace this idea of creating our own reality. So one of the things I want to bring up first before we get into the meat of it, right, because with our moon in Sagittarius, we don't know what we don't know. And that can't necessarily be an excuse for being complacent or apathetic, but it does help to put things into a perspective when we're making decisions and choices and choosing to feed certain thought forms and give it our attention and allowing it to grow and allowing that energetic resonance to be what surrounds us, right? The toroidal field that creates our Merkaba or our aura, right? We do make choices about that. And this is why people have such a hard time with this concept. As much as it's been just thumped by the hijack New Age community, the Secret, right? That book, The Secret, the Abraham Hicks material. I mean, literally thoughts create things. I mean, there's so much truth in these, in these messages and these messengers that have brought it forward. But make no mistake that it has also been very carefully curated in a way that actually, in some ways, I feel like keeps us on this feedback loop of creating our own prison matrix. And this is where we're eventually going with this energy today in this transmission. But I want to lead up to bring some real world type of examples to, as I usually do. Everything that seems to be modified in my house and my property along the way tends to correspond really well to what's going on energetically. Just, we create our own reality, right? We resonate and attract what resonates with that frequency that we're emitting from our own energetic field. So today there's going to be crew on my property. They're going to be replacing the liner in our pool, fancy pants, right? When you start to realize how much absolute maintenance goes into taking care of all of these types of things, a pool and property with acreage and all of the landscaping and all that. I'm not complaining. I love that type of work. But I think people think that having all of these assets, in some ways, having all of the access to these types of structures and amenities, that's the word I'm looking for, is all well and good, but it takes a lot of maintenance, right? And that's another thing that can really feed into this transmission about how our aura, how our Merkaba, how the toroidal field, it takes maintenance, right? We can't just make a vision board and then be done with it, right? It actually requires us to feed the system, to be involved in the system, be the conscious creator at the center of it. So anyway, they're coming to replace the liner so we can actually fill the pool and maybe have some enjoyment of it as halfway through the summer. And there's a little puddle, right, that's been sitting at the bottom of the pool that hasn't drained out for months now. And so it is definitely a little ecosystem on its own. And there's a family of frogs that lives there now, and they have been for a while. And we go out and we kind of, say hi to the frogs and stuff. But today, they don't know any better. They just hopped into this environment and, just like most living things, are very adaptable. And they're adapting to their environment. Little do they know that today they're going to have their entire world turned upside down, their entire habitat destroyed, and having to move on to the next environment for them to survive in and to thrive in. And maybe they won't make it. I'm hoping to catch them before they really get, a lot of the work done. It's been kind of difficult to catch them and rehome them in the creek behind the house, hopefully. But you don't know what you don't know. And they didn't, they're just surviving, and they found an environment that they can survive in, not realizing that in fact they have just I wouldn't say necessarily created, but in some ways they have hopped into their own prison matrix, because now they're not totally free. That entire environment's going to be upended and destroyed for them. And they may not, in fact, be able to get out unless there's some intervention, right? Unless I go in there and catch them. Or the crew manages to catch them and rehome them. So it's just a little example about how we don't necessarily understand and can really grok the full picture sometimes, but that doesn't mean that we aren't subject to the environment that we find ourselves in. And this is part of the human condition of creating our own prison matrix by the resonance that we put off, what we attract to us. And this is some of the most difficult work to wrap your head around when you have suffered real trauma in your life. You have been victimized in a very significant way, and find yourself in situations where you are face to face with an abuser, a perpetrator, or a system that is abusive, or a system that is in itself the perpetrator. And I'm going to address this in a written post, because somebody had brought it up to me in terms of their very personal life and how to address these issues. And I think this is something we should talk about and have a conversation about, and really get some multiple pieces of feedback here, but I'm going to save that for that particular, I want to give that its own attention. But this is one of the most difficult things for us to wrap our head around, about, like, I didn't choose this, right? I didn't make this reality. And what tends to be the counter argument to this, which in some ways is not totally wrong, but at the same time we have to look at the nuances and the big picture here, is that this concept of creating your own reality, thoughts create things, is really the result of some sort of social privilege, right? That people who are, as a result of their race, their ethnicity, their class, they are not able to access this type of mentality. And in fact, it's not really our resonance at all that creates anything. We are just victims of a system of perpetrators, right? Which in itself reinforces the victim narrative and takes away all of your autonomy and sovereignty and power to have any impact on your life, because you are in constant opposition to that which you feel is your victimizer or your perpetrator, whether it be a person or a system. And so the thing is, we are going to hit a wall with this, because we will always be at war with something if we continue to give our attention and energy to this particular aspect of this narrative, which is that there is no way to create our reality. It's just a fantasy that has been that is based on social privilege that's not accessible to everyone. And this incessant navel gazing is really just a way for people to not take responsibility for social injustice, right? That is the opposite, opposing perspective. And I'm not saying that there's nothing valid to that. I think it's important that we are able to really look deeply at all of the facets of these types of debates and conversations. That's how we actually learn and we grow, and this is where the Syrian starseeds really come into focus, because they're able to engage in these conversations without getting personally involved in the position that they take, in a way to get sharper, become more knowledgeable, analyze more information to actually come to conclusions, right? And the conclusions come with Sagittarius, the opposite of Gemini, which we're going to talk about today, because our moon is in Sagittarius all day, and there's some pretty interesting transits here. And the Sagittarian archetype in and of itself, we talked yesterday about the whose will is shaping our character. This is developed in the Cancer archetype. If we have not come to the fourth house and wherever Cancer is in our chart and really mastered that energy, as we move along the zodiacal calendar, along the astrological wheel of our development, by the time we get to Sagittarius, if we have not learned to hone our intuition and to know what trusting our gut actually feels like, then by the time we get to Sagittarius, we are operating under somebody else's rules, right? We are operating under a belief system that's been structured for us, because we don't know what is at the core of who we are, outside of a social construct. And so we'll talk about that today, because you don't know what you don't know. But the problem is, if you're not plugged into the core of who you are, and you're fine-tuning your discernment and your intuition, and then somebody else's will is shaping your character. And so by the time you get to Sagittarius, which is understanding, which is truth, which is belief systems and collective paradigms, you're operating under somebody else's collective paradigm, thinking that it's your truth, or it is truth. And with the moon in Sagittarius today, we're going to all bump up against this. And I'm not meaning to be disparaging. In fact, the fact that I have all of this stellium of Sagittarius in my chart, that it's my sun sign, it's in my 10th and 11th houses. I have Neptune, Mars, Mercury, all conjunct in Sagittarius in the 11th house, right? I know this dynamic because I have to work on it constantly within myself, which is I know better. And Sag people, they do usually know better, but it can only really fully be expressed as a form of spiritual alchemy and understanding if, in fact, we have it's our own will that has been shaping, and not our ego will, but our spiritual will that has been shaping our character. And that comes much earlier in the process. So we'll get all into that. We will get into that. Now, there's a couple things, again, that I want to bring up. The imagery that I showed you, the toroidal field, again, coming from the heart chakra. This is important today because this is coming out in the intuitive reading and the astrology, the importance of the heart chakra as an electrical pump, right? Moving the blood through our entire body. What does the blood do? It does a lot of things, right? The blood obviously takes oxygen to everywhere it needs to go. The blood also is responsible for our thermostat in our body, right? Of course, the glands and such are responsible for regulating it as the thermostat, but then, the blood vessels are like the ducting, right? And so the movement of blood through the body, depending on where it goes, is regulating our temperature and our internal temperature. It is a big part of is oxygen, right? Hemoglobin, taking, all kinds of things. It's a transport system. And we could go on and on and on about how important this is. But the pump is the heart, and it's an electrical pump that then puts off an electromagnetic field. The toroidal field that really is our Merkaba and our aura is emitted ultimately from the heart chakra. So the whole chakra system is like the antenna, right? Coming up from the root, coming down from the crown, simultaneously meeting in the heart chakra, which in fact is the axis between our spiritual energetic body and our physical body, which is embodied in the readings that I do every day on this channel, right? The actual structure of the intuitive reading is that midpoint is the heart chakra, which is literally the axis of our energetic self and the physical reality. The material reality are the matrix that we're operating within. And when that heart chakra is open, it's spinning, it's healthy, it's vibrant, right? It is vulnerable, but also strong at the same time. If it's emitting a very strong signal, then our aura, our Merkaba, the toroidal field is going to be strong, right? And it's really what's coming from the heart that is going to be either our the field in which we create our reality in a sovereign way, right? Remember, the heart is related to the fifth house and it's related to Leo, right? Are we sovereign individuals with a strong heart that moves that energy through our body? In Chinese medicine, the qi is carried by the blood, right? And so you can think about it that way, that the blood is moving the energy of life force energy through the body as a result of its movement by the heart. But it really, it's up to us. Is this toroidal field going to be the matrix of a reality? Well, it will be. It will, in fact, resonate and attract what it is. And we can be in a prison, right? That toroidal field and that Merkaba, it can be our prison. It can be our self-imposed prison, in which then we attract everything that is coming from our heart chakra, that's based in fear, that's based in lack, that's based in victimhood, that's based in what we don't have, and worry, concern. And these are all normal human emotions. But if we continue to feed them into this system, then that is what we are going to get in our lives. And that does not mean that things aren't going to happen that really challenge us, no matter how much we stay in this perspective that we can't control what other people do, but we can control our own field. And that will, in fact, attract to us what it is that resonates with all of those thought forms. And I mean, it is literal. And we've been hearing, and many of us in the new age community, right? I don't even know what to call it, the spiritual community. I mean, there shouldn't really be any difference at this point. I mean, I think that we've hopefully most of us have figured this out, that there really is not meant to be a difference. And the fact that there is a bifurcation and a difference is why Atlantis failed in the first place, right? We have to bring these two aspects together into one whole before we can ever be able to harness the incredible amount of energy that the Earth and the solar system and the sun is able to provide. That's a whole other conversation, in terms of upgrading the scaffolding to some sort of carbon-based, system that will be able to hold way more cosmic energy, plasma energy from the sun, because that's not going away, right? We're just starting solar cycle 25. Right, so moving towards solar maximum, we almost got fried. The fact that the sun was 180 degrees, or the side of the sun was a complete opposite from the Earth when it let off a kill shot. And I mean, the fact that it was so strong that we still felt it here. I know I did. So we know to a certain extent. And again, suspiciousobservers.org. That channel was brought to my attention not that long ago by somebody in the circle, and I was just like, oh yeah, this is a really good one, because I do track this, and I have a background, a limited background in chemistry and astrophysics, so I do understand the mechanics of all of this from the language. So, but their channel is great, and we would have been done for, completely meltdown. So whether or not that is, there is some measure of, I don't know, this is a conversation that I think would be interesting to have in general. Does the sun have a consciousness? Of course, many people are going to say yes, and allowed for us to somehow, bypass this total kill shot. Who knows? But we got very lucky, very, very lucky. Everything that would be happening right now in terms of all the things that we're stressed about now would be exponentially worse with that kill shot if it had been facing towards the Earth, like Carrington event times infinity. Basically everything, not only would the whole grid have shut down entirely, all of the components to repair it would be gone too. Like we would be pushed back into a total primitive age, with all of us being reliant on the technology to survive. It would have, yeah. Anyway, I'm digress. So let's get into the reading so we can see here about how important it is that we are acknowledging that we create our reality. And do we create a prison matrix for ourselves, or are we going to start really waking up to the fact that it's really our own energy, how we and the field around us that is the potential for everything, and where we put our energy, where we put our thoughts, what we feed with our attention. And I'm not saying that we create our own trauma. I'm not suggesting that we attract to us our own illnesses. By the time we have an illness, the energetic template has been there for a very long time. And a lot of times with certain types of illnesses, I think they've been there ancestrally. It's not even necessarily like, this particular lifetime with this particular ego consciousness that is responsible. I mean, it's just part of the morphogenetic field that we all connect to, especially in our ancestry. So it's a difficult line to walk, because you don't want to put people on blast like they're somehow responsible for their own abuse, because that's never the case. But what we do with these situations, and how we address them, and how we take responsibility for our own field around us and what's coming from our own energetic field, is the point here. So let's look at this reading, because it's actually surprisingly very hopeful, right? We see our magician now is turned upright. We got the 10 of discs at the heart of the matter, the wealth and accumulation. And then, the causal factor. Let's start here. The 4 of Wands, Venus in Aries, completion, right? The 4, structure and integrity. The completion aspect here is our causal factor. And so what it represents is the completing of a cycle of actualization, right? That's what we're looking at with Aries and fire, right? The wands. So the plan has fulfilled it. It's been fulfilled. The work is done. Whatever we've been working on creatively, in terms of transformation, spiritually, right? That fire is really much more of a spiritual nature. It's been completed to a certain extent, not forever. It's just the first step of completion and security. So this represents like being able to rest after this and be able to kind of sit back and take in the whole thing. And so there is structure here. There's a control, right, with this structure, this circular energy. And you can see that it goes between the ram and the bird, which does feel to me like a very Aries / Libra type of opposition here, right? The fire and then the air that is represented by birds in general. And then a lot of times this card will come out when things don't seem like they're a successful completion. You know, it's a lot of times it's when things come to like a full failure in some ways. And so, but what this card represents and the possibilities here are that we learn a lesson from the failure, right? In the material world. And it gives us what we need to achieve spiritual maturity. So there has been so much frustration. And again, Chiron is just, in its retrograde, it's just going to be so much more obvious now. And really something we can't ignore in terms of this victim savior narrative, our woundedness at the base of who we are, the woundedness and the shame of actualizing ourselves and what that means. So this causal factor coming into the moment, there's a completion here, and a cycle needed to complete in order for us to learn and gain spiritual maturity. So a lot of times, like I said, this is usually referencing some sort of failure, which is in itself a completion, right? There's something that had to come full circle in terms of what we are creating, our transformation, right? That activity that the wands represent. Something had to come to fruition and completion in order for us to learn something, right? And Venus represents our physical, material comfort and wealth and value. And she is she's coming into conjunction with Regulus. And we talked about Regulus today, and you can see right here, Archangel Raphael came out. So we're going to talk about Regulus. And so something has come to completion, whatever it is, that is leading us to learn something from our failures. And it can be anything, right? And we don't have to take it so personally. Now, Venus does kind of feel in some ways the sting of discomfort. She's very sensitive. And so this actually works in our favor right now, especially because she is coming into conjunction with Regulus, right? The heart of the lion. So you can see all of these threads coming together for today's transmission. In the heart of the matter, speaking of the heart, right? The axis between our energetic spiritual nature, the energetic field, and what is outside of us, is wealth, right? The 10 of discs. This is another completion type of energy, a cycle coming to fruition, and security. The richest potentials of what we have cultivated are unfolding in this card. And so we see now that there is this cycle coming to completion. Some sort of activity, some sort of transformative spiritual activity or creativity comes full circle, and we then find ourselves at the heart of the moment here, where the richest potentials of everything are unfolding, right? And there's a completion. So you have these two energies of completion back to back here, represented outside of us in the physical reality that we're interacting with. So there's a lot of completion energy. There is a lot of security, and there is a lot of a full circle type of energy, and cultivate and really just sitting in it. There's like a rest after labor type of energy from both of these cards. Now, when we look at our energetic polarity, again, we've seen this many times, the 3 of keys, the chess game, when it's reversed, I'll say it again, we become very aware how untenable this political conflict of black, white, the bifurcation that we see, right? It becomes untenable, right? We need to disengage from it entirely instead of playing the game. There's nothing wrong with playing the game. But if you think about what these two cards here, the 4 of Wands and the 10 of Discs, how much this represents a cycle coming to a close, a completion, a security, a rest after the labor to really take stock of everything. And then we have this running in the background underneath the surface, not totally aware of it. Some of us are. If you're doing the work, you're checking in with yourself on a regular basis, meditation, prayer, writing, creativity, whatever you do to check in with yourself deeply, letting the thoughts kind of settle to the bottom, kind of like when you stir up, salt in a beaker of water or whatever, it eventually all settles to the bottom if it doesn't dissolve. This is where we're at here energetically at our root that we know that it's time to disengage emotionally, if not physically, right? We want to step outside of, we want to get off this chessboard and stop playing, unless we know for a fact that that's what we're here to do. That's a different story. This is about getting pulled in to this chess game as if our life depended on being one side or the other. And we know deep down that this conflict is what is holding us back. We stay focused on this, and this is all we're going to keep getting, right? This is all we're going to see. This is all we're going to experience, is just this back and forth, right? And so we know deep down that it's time to disengage. And this goes from the microcosm of your personal lives, even within yourself, all the way out. And so you have to energetically and feeling wise and allow your thoughts to also disengage here. But we know deep down that this is what needs to be happening, because we need to create space. And you see here, right here, the panda, right? Creating that sacred space. If we keep engaging with this political conflict of back and forth, which I assure you is being controlled by one overarching entity here, whatever you want to call it, we have to step back and make space within us for something new to grow, right? And so we see this at the bottom here. This is what's running underneath the surface. We know deep down we need to disengage. At the heart of things is this very physical, very material coming to a close, right? Mercury and Virgo, it's not about the assets that we have. It's about what we've done with the physical reality to create and cultivate something that is valuable. And that is this is at the heart of the matter, coming to a completion. The cycle is closing in a very material way. And it's a result of our own participation in this process. And what we are aware of, though, here's our good friend, the lookout. We do know that there's what we're paying attention to is the dumpster fire that is underneath us. And many of us are, in fact, still looking out for where to go next, right? You see, we've talked about this before. He has the purple shirt, the indigo color that represents the pineal gland, right? The third eye sight, the intuition, and the access to this something that we see with our inner vision, right? There's looking out over the horizon to see where it's going next. So we know, and what we're paying attention to and what we're really aware of is this, like, everything burning up around us, and we are looking for where to go next, right? We want to put our sights on where we want to be, so then we start creating it. It is hot though, right? I mean, there's a struggle with temptation to get freaked out here, right? Because you know that there's this fire burning under you. It's getting hotter and harder, and eventually you're going to have to get out of the crow's nest energetically and go to where you see is freedom or respite or a new ship or whatever, right? Getting to safe ground. Right now we are still looking, right? But still at the heart here is a cycle has completed in some way. And it's been a very transformative cycle. It has to do with the completion of some sort of creative activity. And this couldn't come to this point without this completion of the cycle, right? The wheel turning and coming back to its beginning. Same with the 10 of discs. It's the same basic idea. The wheel turning and coming right back to the beginning at the end. So and it's not going to happen. We have to have these cycles complete in order for us to see the full cycle. So, but what we are paying attention to is where we're trying to get to that's safe and is not in this dumpster fire. So in number 17, we know 17, right? That's our Aquarius card, the star card, right? That is our, well, you know where 17 is, what letter of the alphabet that is, and what to expect. I mean, now we have their magician upright, still in conjunction, Mercury is still in conjunction with Sirius, right? This is the wheelhouse of the Syrian star seeds. This is what the Syrians came here and showed us that we were not ready to hold yet, because we were not, we're still locked into greed and lust and ego and wanting more and more and wanting control, right? You can't handle necessarily, you have to be of the highest light in order to be a white magician, right? As soon as you start letting all of those self-preservation and your ego and all of the ways that you all of the ways that we betray ourselves on a daily basis from our own truth of who we and the truth, right? Every time that inverts this magus, right? Every single time. But this is showing that when we realize when we really tap into the idea that we have to kind of exit the system, like our self-imposed prison, then we like, it's like an aha moment. Oh yeah, I'm the magician of my own reality. I'm the creator and manifester of my own reality. I can use all of these tools, right? He has all of them. He's got the pentacles and the cups and the swords and the fire, and the air, like all of this energy is available to the magus, or us as magi, in order to create and manifest reality. This is what the magi truly represents: consciousness, action, creation, self-realization, right? Thoughts create things. This exemplifies thoughts create things, the magus. It starts here. And so this is really favorable in terms of, we have to accept the failures as well as our successes as a cycle completing, and really pull in everything that we have cultivated as a result of all of our labor, right? And what we have accumulated in terms of wealth, either physical wealth, like actual financial assets, whatever in our material environment. And Virgo is of service, right? So it's all for the service of humanity that we've accumulated all of these resources. And where it leads to is this acknowledgement that, in fact, we are in charge of our own reality, and that our consciousness actually creates. And once we come to this conclusion, wow, there's nothing that stops us, right? We immediately break out of that self-imposed prison. So some things to keep in mind along the way here is, number one, the Two of Keys is the treasure. And we have the panda too, about the sacred space. Now you're going to lose things, right? Somebody's going to, this represents some, a total loss in some ways of all of our material comfort and security. That does draw attention to the one light in the room, which is this little treasure chest that has our real value in it. And then there's a little lamp above this person, even though that they're really focused. And look at the moon out here, this crescent moon. So things aren't totally fully illuminated in terms of our intuitive knowing either. So we are, this really speaks to the idea that if we stay in our lack mentality, that's all we're going to see. And in fact, sometimes we have to lose a lot of things, right? We have to fail, right? Things have to come to fruition in some ways. We have to bring in everything that we reap what we sow, literally. And sometimes we have to bring that all in order and lose. That has to be a losing cycle sometimes for us to come to realize the true value of who we are, the true treasure, which is the light within us. And along with that, the panda, of course, is about creating a sacred space. And so we have to create a sacred space within us if we want to grow this reality. And if we are still engaged with this political conflict, whatever it is in our lives, it's not allowing for us to do that. And so we have to create this space for the treasure to really show itself. And we can't do that if we are staying in a state of lack, if we are constantly focusing on what we don't have, what's going to go wrong, what has gone wrong, that all of this takes up space on our hard drive. Right? And we need to create space. And part of that is just disengaging. That is not bypassing, by the way. That is not bypassing. That is realizing that both sides are being controlled, and keeping us fighting each other in this chess game is keeping us from seeing that the whole chessboard is our prison right now. So, and beyond that, here's our tortoise again. It's talking about being fragmented, so do whatever it takes to get grounded. I think that, again, it's really easy to be in this position of the lookout and start to panic, right? We have to not panic. We also have to take it slow and steady, right? The tortoise, slow and steady. Bring together our spiritual and material aspects within us, right? And rather than being fragmented, through deliberate action. It has to be deliberate. And when we are panicking or when we are in the face of some very stressful situations, everybody responds differently. I personally thrive in that environment. Something kicks on in me and it's just like I just know exactly what. I don't even think about it. It's just like I know what to do. I'm totally calm. I'm focused. One time I did. Not everybody's like this, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody has their own, the flip side of that is that when things are really calm and mellow and there's no crisis, it's like you start to try to create one so that you have something to, keep you grounded and stable, right? And I'm be the first to tell you that is a potential, and I've done this before, right? And so everybody has their way of dealing with things. The important thing is to get grounded, bring these aspects together, and don't panic in the face of what is burning away, because you do have to focus on where we're going. So if you get pulled into acting out or acting rashly or trying to move too quickly with something because of panic, then that's where you're going to be acting from. That's going to be your resonance. And so this is just slow down, get grounded, realize that doesn't mean that there aren't challenges to deal with, but you're not going to be able to keep your focus, eyes on the prize here if you get pulled into the panic mode, or if you're too fragmented between your spiritual and physical reality. And I think a lot of people are living the bifurcation and still struggling with how to bring those things together, which is completely normal. It's just what we're doing now, and the stakes are really high, and it's actually happening very quickly, like so much more quickly than any of us have ever experienced before, ever, even in other lifetimes. So here is Archangel Raphael. This is a great segue into the astrology, because Archangel Raphael is in fact one of the 4 royal stars. It represents fixed star Regulus, which is the heart of the lion. And as you see here, the pink heart chakra is glowing. He's got the green orb, also related to the heart chakra. Archangel Raphael usually comes in the form of a human. See, there are no wings here. It's usually this beautiful miracle that comes in with Archangel Raphael. And Regulus, at the last degree of Leo, like I said, the heart of the lion, which is interesting. It's actually a quadruple star system with 2 binaries systems together. That's pretty cool. And Archangel Raphael is love and family and miracles and blessed journeys, and comes in the form of a guide. It's not always obvious that Archangel Raphael is an archangel. And so, Regulus is a very powerful fixed star in terms of that type of astrology, and really is related to royal and sovereign leadership, military honors, all of these things. And really the heart of the lion is providing that leadership coming from the heart, not from the head, not from control or the ego. It's coming from the heart. And again, this is why this part of our body is so important. This is why understanding energetically how the heart really puts off this electromagnetic field that creates our toroidal field, it is our Merkaba, it is our aura. This is the energy field in which we either are trapped by, or is what attracts to us the and we connect and are resonant with the earth as a toroidal field. Same thing, right? There's that microcosm, macrocosm. So Archangel Raphael is here as a guide. And if you're grounded, right, you're not fragmented, you're not panicking, you really are looking out and staying focused. I feel like that miracles are so, especially with Venus coming to meet Regulus, and then Mars right behind her in just a couple of days, like the potential for real miracles and some person, some group of people, some event coming through. And it's probably going to be a person. And I'm just curious if anybody knows who has Regulus on. There's a very very notable public and political figure who has Regulus on their ascendant along with Mars. So they're going to have not only a Mars returns, but it's right on Regulus, their ascendant. I'm just curious if anybody knows who that is, and let me know in the chat or in comments or whatever. And if nobody guesses it, I'll tell you. But I think that it's pretty interesting, to say the least. But I do see this potential coming through, and with, like I said, Venus and Regulus, with Regulus and with Mars coming to meet Regulus, Mars is going to be much more of a, aggressor, and, the heart of the lion charging, right? Whereas Venus, especially Venus in Leo, is that passion card in the tarot. And so Venus at Regulus is really harnessing all of that passion and power in order to, and then Mars is going to come behind bring up the end of that train in some ways, and then act on it as soon as it gets there. So in the meantime, this is very healing, right? Venus is about our security and comfort, but she's also very beautiful, and she brings in harmony and value to our relationships and our material world. And so there's this sense here of really strong healing of the heart chakra, and an awareness here of these miracles that can come in. And that's about having faith in source, having faith in God, however you want to characterize this creator source energy, and when you have faith in that, however you identify that within your own self is really going to set the tone, right? And again, this is not about bypassing. This is not about like putting your head in the sand. It's the complete opposite. It's standing up with a vulnerable but strong heart and letting that actually be what emanates the field that is going to resonate with the highest reality that you want to be in, right? So excellent. I know that there's a lot of information here, but it's just a lot's coming through right now. So let's see if I can, let's see what we got here. Well, let's start with, I'll just show you, we'll just start here, just so you can see. Regulus, right here, heart of the lion. This is the constellation of Leo. So here's Regulus right here at the front. Here is all of Leo, just to kind of give you an idea here, what we're looking at in terms of fixed star astrology and Vedic astrology. But here's today's chart. So we are looking at, well, here is the moon right now is in a conjunction with Antares, with the South Node. And so, yeah, we're going to go through all of this. So and it won't take too long. Let's go back here, because the first thing I want to address is, first, we're going to look at how Mercury is in a sextile to Uranus, Mercury in conjunction with Sirius. So we had the big conjunction with our sun, right? Our star in conjunction with Sirius over 4th of July weekend. That is when, the sun is in conjunction with Sirius on the birth chart of the United States. And we also had massive solar activity that came through at the same time. So we were getting blasted. Blasted with these Syrian codes, right? Now Mercury's here, and Mercury is how we, kind of rules Gemini and Virgo. So Mercury is helping us analyze that information now. Mercury is the processing of our nervous system. It is how our neural pathways actually are connected, how it all functions, how the signals are sent, and then how, again, how a thought can become a reality. Very exemplified in conjunction with Sirius, because like I said, this is the wheelhouse of the Sirians and the Sirian star seeds. It's about taking creative potential and manifesting it through the expression of vibration, right? The sacral chakra and the heart chakra, or the throat chakra, excuse me. So this sextile here today with Mercury, as you see here, this was this morning or late last night, depending on where you are. This sextile here, as we know, right, that investment opportunity, a harmonious connection that requires us to invest these energies to get the most out of it. Uranus, we haven't talked too much about lately, and we will again when there's going to be some big transits coming up. with Uranus, especially when the sun comes into Leo, it's going to square Uranus. So that's going to be a real challenge. But in the meantime, right now, the sextile is offering us the opportunity here to, we are being challenged on a daily basis to brave the storm, whatever the storm is. And boy, that imagery has been hijacked too and utilized for every propaganda message you can imagine. I went into the hospital to see my dad yesterday, and they have used that imagery of "we are the storm" to push vaccines and the whole thing, right? It's like, so it's frustrating, but it is what it is. And there's a reason that symbols and abstractions are so easily hijacked, because that's how people are programmed, is through abstraction and symbols. And that's a very Sagittarian thing, isn't it? Anyway, so we are being challenged on a regular basis right now to really put our heads down and brave the storm as the impetus for our own awakening on a collective level. Uranus being the planet of that process, the collective third eye, the trigger for awakening and innovation and future oriented, outside of the box type of thinking, right? Because it's not held, it's beyond Saturn, right? Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, beyond Saturn, beyond the physical matrix of reality. There's something more to it, right? Aquarius and Pisces, there's something more going on than what we acknowledge as material reality. So this sextile here with Mercury in a conjunction with Sirius, I mean, we can really utilize this energy, because in Cancer, especially this position of Cancer, halfway through between the decision and the consolidation that Cancer represents as an energy and as an energetic construct, it really does allow for, it allows the mundane to be made sacred, right? And when we can do that from a position of our mentality, how we engage with ideas, how we communicate, how our nervous system actually functions in the world around us, right? Mercury, all of those, and that's very Gemini. And the other thing about Mercury in Virgo, which is exemplified in our reading today, is more of the analysis, right? Putting things where they belong, putting the data, analyzing the data. Still, it allows for the mundane to be made sacred, right? And sometimes we have to materialize what is spiritual to kind of make sense of it. And that happens as a result of that shamanic expression, right? When the shaman changes their, goes into trance through drumming and chanting and singing and dancing, right? All of these practices that literally change vibration through sound, or using sacred geometry, for instance, even just tapping into the rhythm of the planet itself. When you're able to actually use these spiritual types of practices and make a change in reality. And at the same time, you're materializing what is spiritual, what is energetic. You're actually making change to reality. And so the shaman does this by healing, right? They heal their community. They work with their allies in the non-physical to, heal people, or to keep people, their clan or their group, safe, right? Show them where the herds are going to be moving to in order to hunt and keep people sustained. These are all the things that a shaman would do. So we can utilize this kind of like materializing the spiritual, and not in a way that is, we're not trying to get something out of it like some people do, right? I mean, this was a conversation on a chat room yesterday about like how it's almost, it's pretty awful to manipulate people on their spiritual journey in order to make money. And lots of people do it. And lots of people don't even realize that they're doing anything wrong, right? But anyway, so the point I'm trying to make, though, is that we can invest this energy into each other with Uranus and Cancer, Uranus and Mercury, right? These two aspects that represent the individual mind and the collective mind, and these two very feminine qualities of earth and water, in order to, we can use that. We can use this materialization of the spiritual and invest that into what Uranus is really challenging us on, which is braving the storm. Like, we have to just put our head down and get through it, because that's part of the natural cycle of what's around us, right? The material world has storms, and it has ups and downs, it has cycles, and we have to just kind of put our head down, flip up our collar and our hood, and just go for it. And this is the path of our awakening. And so we can utilize this very Syrian energy in the way that we conceptualize reality to assist in this, right? We can invest this. So beyond that, then we have the moon in Sagittarius that is now going to start coming into a conjunction with Juno, asteroid Juno, coming into a conjunction with the South Node, Antares. So again, we're having a deep connection here into where we've been, right? What we've mastered karmically, especially in Sagittarius. We're talking about collective paradigms, belief systems. We're talking about truth. We're talking about the big picture. We're talking about religion, philosophy, the big picture items here. And so we're each coming into a recognition and a connection to where we've been, the energy we've already mastered. And you know, the moon in Sagittarius in the tarot does represent strength. It's the 9 of Wands. And because there is strength, there's an incredible amount of strength there when we're all acting in resonance with each other, right? With that spiritual alchemy that is understanding. When we're all acting from that same understanding, there is strength on a personal level that we can draw from. It's not to say that this is inappropriate, right? Because we tend to get caught with the South Node of the moon being like, this is where we're moving away from. And it's true, but it also provides the momentum moving forward towards this North Node, which is, we talked about yesterday, in conjunction with Aldebaran, Archangel Michael, and taking the nosedive, right? We're about to challenge reality here because we are going for it. And we have a lot of protection and power to assist us in this process, but we also have to acknowledge the betrayal, right? We have to acknowledge the sting of the scorpion. And this is, again, part of that cycle coming to completion. It had to be this way, right? We, on a ego level, may not necessarily understand that, but this is how we've all crafted this together in order to learn something. And we have to come to terms with the betrayal, with the commitment that was made, that was really, was it made under the collective paradigm and belief systems that we want to operate under? We're going to have to come to these recognitions, and it's very drastic today in terms, it's very personal. We're going to feel it very personally with all of these Sagittarian connections to Antares and Juno and the South Node. So, and we can see how it can propel us forward, right? If you succumb to the sting, right? If you get caught up in the betrayal, then you are starting, that is what you're feeding your Merkaba with, is that particular, like, you're just gnashing on it and gnawing on it. And you're just like, you know, really judge it. I mean, Sagittarius, the judgment. This is a hard conversation, learning the difference between discernment and judgment, right? Discernment is being like, oh, I see what you're doing. And it violates all of my ethical codes here. And judgment is like, I'm going to throw the first stone at you, as if you've never done anything wrong in your life, right? We all have the potential to be awful. And I think that if we can see that and take the sting for what it is and allow it to move us forward rather than being corrupted by it, we really do have strength, okay, to move in this direction. From here, the moon comes into a sextile with Saturn retrograde in Aquarius, right? Another sextile. This time it's much more masculine because you have fire and you have air. And, you know, Saturn has been pretty relentless, of course, as I've been saying, in terms of its retrograde in Aquarius. It's in its co-rulership of Aquarius. Retrograde is just making it much more obvious, and it's making it really an internalized battle and an internalized authority in some ways. It's putting up the wall. And it's the idea that we're all on our own stair. We're all on our own step. Right? There's a natural progression. You don't know what you don't know. And you don't know that you don't know it until all of a sudden you do. So you take a step and then you're like, oh, I can look and see where I was, and be like, oh, I couldn't see it from that position because I was down in that position. So you move into a different position and then you see like, oh, I didn't see it before. You don't know what you don't know. So give some people a break. right? Like we're all kind of like caught up in whatever position we are on that chessboard. Now, the sextile with the moon in Sagittarius is giving us an opportunity to bring our noble ideals into an actual form, right? We are through our spiritual will. And it depends on what those noble ideals are. Again, Sagittarius is not the truth. Sagittarius is the power of a collective belief system to build something. So it depends on what paradigm you're operating under that you can invest into where Saturn is. If your noblest ideal is that people who are on the step below you deserve to be punished because they're too stupid to figure out what's going on, or whatever it is, that's just an example. It's a very Sagittarian thing, unfortunately, is to be like, I'm just right about everything. If, you can invest that into where Saturn is, and it'll boomerang right back at you. That's the thing about Saturn retrograde. It is kind of like a boomerang, if we don't realize it. Now, if our noblest ideals are compassion and kindness and doing good works and enjoying the ride and accepting that we've created everything as a result of these collective paradigms, but we don't want to be in them anymore, that's going to be an incredible investment into where Saturn is, and vice versa. If we know without any doubt that everybody's on their own trajectory, not even their own trajectory, we're all on the same trajectory now. It's just that everybody's on their own step on this staircase. If we know that and accept that, and we're not fighting against it, but allowing that to structure us, we can invest that into this personalized experience of truth and collective values, and bring that to the forefront and let it infuse us. There's so much potential today, and there's so much potential to really just fuck this up. There's no fucking it up, to be honest. It's just it just depends on what pathway you want to take to this, and that's really going to be determined where your heart is resonating in that Merkaba and where it is, right? Let's see. The moon then comes right into their trine to Chiron. Oh my. This is a retribution moment, is it not? This is about that past karmic actions, even when the cycle turns over, just like with the Four of Wands, even with the cycle turning over, even with this, coming to fruition of all of the material wealth and acquisition as a result of our work, right? Even with that, if we have not dealt with our past karmic actions, they will come back to haunt the new cycle. And this trine here, we're not going to have to do much with this trine to Chiron, retrograde Chiron. We're just, and it could very well, oh my gosh, it very well could spark some real, like the next level of social frustration, right? Because you're just like, I see now. There's no hiding what has happened. It will, in fact, come back around to have an impact. And this is why with this type of spiritual alchemy, your two elements of fire and water, for instance, they have to be purified. Because if you put impurities into the cauldron, that's what you're going to get is an impure essence, whatever it is you're creating. And so we have to be very aware of that. And this can be a beautiful healing moment with Chiron retrograde, or it could be just like, just doubling down and just ignoring that entirely, in which case it will just keep the wound will just keep festering, right? Because you just keep not purifying those elements. So again, and we won't have to do much. That trine, getting a lot of traction with each other, but not so much of a challenge necessarily, because there's no square opposition to work with. It's just going to be there. So, and that's something that's happening later today. And then from there, the moon comes into a quincunx, right? Here, you can see him right here. Quincunx to Uranus, quincunx to Mercury in Cancer, right? Where these two were in a sextile. Now the moon is in conjunct with both of these, because the moon coming into this part of Sagittarius is really moving from that phase of abstraction into the transference of that abstraction, right? The abstraction is turning all of the truth of the human experience into an archetype or a symbol. And then the latter half of Sagittarius is the process of transferring it. And for as much as, the problem is this particular degree of Sagittarius is very interesting to me because it really shows that we will. It's very easy for us to psychically and energetically rely and be dependent upon easily acquired situations, right? If somebody is feeding us the symbols and abstractions, and we'll just be like, okay, it's like seagulls, flying around or in a ship, flying around a ship if you've ever, or flying around the beach, for instance. But I think the ship is a much better metaphor just because it's about moving across the ocean of the collective unconscious. And our transcendent consciousness will initially go after the easy meal, right? And so while we may be feeling personally drawn to that situation, oh my gosh, the in conjunct with Mercury is our saving grace today. It happens. I mean, what an opportunity. And Uranus too. What an opportunity to adjust our expectations and adjust ourselves in terms of our own gut, right? We need to be able to integrate our personality based on our core connection to who we are, and our deep intuitive knowing, not based on the symbols that collective belief systems are giving us to consume. It's very easy to do this. This, like I said, this quincunx is our saving grace today. It's going to challenge us. We're going to have to, and I see this happening around the same time that Venus is really getting close now to Regulus, right? Coming into that last degree of Leo. And so it's the heart, right? We got to be true to ourselves, like really true to ourselves, and really question the abstractions, the symbols that are behind a collective belief system that we are really meant to leave behind, right? We are moving towards the north node of the moon, the Gemini, which is moving into new territory, taking a deep dive, like, and embarking on success through integrity. Rather than obsession with being right or having control, which is what Antares really represents. That's why it's a sting, right? There's no real lasting peace when you are operating out of that place. So I think that, like I said, that quincunx by the end of the day, as you see here, we're going to look at a quincunx with Uranus, and then right after that, the quincunx with Mercury at the end of the day, still in a conjunction with Sirius as well. And so, like I said, it's really easy. And when you are taking in abstractions and symbols and propaganda or whatever, even just symbols of a collective paradigm, when you're taking them in rather than developing them for yourself within you, you are really, you're not creating from the core of who you are. And Mercury is really drawing us back to that type of that way of conceptualizing our reality is through our own energetic resonance. I mean, we've been talking about this. I mean, this is not new, right? But it's going to show you how important it actually is to practice this and to put it into daily life, because that's how we are going to handle what is coming down the pipeline, because it does need to be this way. We've chosen at the highest levels of ourselves for it to be this way, so that we learn something, so that it never happens again, right? So a lot of potential today, a lot of potential. Also a lot of realization that we create our own prison system. And I know that people don't like to hear that, but that is just, until we collectively figure out that we're in control of our own reality, then we will continue to feel like we are a victim of other people. And there will be things that happen that are going to test this even more, right? Many people, I mean, all you have to... South Africa, just pay attention to what's happening in South Africa. That'll give you a really good idea of what, there is a plan to execute that globally, okay? You're not hearing about South Africa in the news, or even probably your favorite, patriot influencers, right? But I would recommend it. Like, actually looking, Ice Age Farmer, great resource on Telegram. I'm not sure if his YouTube channel is still up, but Telegram, he's been posting quite a bit of articles. So, and I know that there's been a bunch about South Africa too, just about what they're dealing with their situation. And it's important to realize that it's going to get harder, right? It's just going to get harder. And September is when all these retrogrades start. All these planets start coming out of retrograde into their prograde. And so it's going to start moving forward. And all these retrogrades right now are giving us this perfect opportunity to adjust ourselves within and to take all of these concepts and ideas and turn them inward and practice them so that when so that we can execute them when the time comes and things start moving forward again, like really moving. So I think I'm going to leave it there, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate each and every one of you. Let's see here. Yeah. If you're interested in a reading, I just totally got lost. If you're interested in a reading, you can check out catalystenergies.net. That's in the description box below, and you can book through there. There's a lot of options there that meet many different price points for people. And you can check out my testimonials page if you're wondering what I'm up to and how people respond to my work. And of course, you can reach out on social media through Facebook and Telegram. That's also linked in the description box below. There's going to be some more stuff coming up on Telegram. I really encourage people to join us there because there's some conversations happening, and there's just a little bit more room to really get into some subjects more than Facebook. But Facebook is available too, and you can always join us there as well. So take care of yourselves, everybody. Have a great day. Make sure you stay hydrated. Make sure you're staying grounded. Do your practice multiple times a day, whatever it is. Go outside, put your feet on the earth, right? Take a few minutes to breathe very deeply, let the thoughts kind of settle down and get into your body, so that you can know what's actually going on. Because that's a better barometer for anything, than anything else, right? Your thoughts, you want to get into your body. It's going to tell you everything you need to know. So love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.